There was a famous meme out there that said, I got time today. And I got time today, Abe. So I'm on one of my closest friends, Abe. He's got a neon sign there too. I wish I had one of those.
Well, fights ATW, fights around the world is my thing. So got to keep plugging away, man.
And if you're a dad that calls my phone, just call me and ask, and you might get on Fights ATW.
You might very well.
There's a very good chance. Where do we start, Abe? I actually wrote out like I was a little late because I actually did. You wanted to do, and I'm not opposed to this, do something about the Royal Rumble. Um, do
On
we
the back
want
half, though.
on the back half? Okay, we're gonna do the back end. That sounds so
Yeah.
wrong, but sounds so wrong. So, where do we start in the sport of boxing? Because I mean, there is just a lot of tomfoolery going on.
Yes, but before that, if we can just touch on real quickly, because I don't think that they deserve enough credit for the fight that they put on. And I know you spoke about it quickly on one of your segments, but Kenshiro versus Carlos Canizales. Wow, what a fight, man.
I mean, he's awesome, bro, and you're the first person that made me actually care about him. I did like his name, to be honest. His name is really cool. His nickname, the Amazing Boy, is cool. He looks cool. He fights cool. I think that the other thing about him is like I want to like him maybe a little bit more than his talent is, just because it's like this whole ordeal. I had to wake up at 2 in the morning. The broadcast's a little funky, and he fights a little bit like Emmanuel Navarrete, and I kind of want to say that he fights like Sugar Ray Leonard. Like I feel like it's hard for me to be completely fair, but man, is he going to be fun until he gets brutally knocked out again.
This is my thing. Most people won't know that in those smaller weight classes, once you hit like 30, 31, you're almost like over the hill already. I don't know what it is, maybe because they're smaller guys or whatever, and they take more punishment. But usually when you hit that mark, that age group, you start kind of descending a little bit. I don't know if he's 32 years old. He's been in some tough fights, and I felt like maybe this was like the beginning of him descending a little bit. Um, and it's unfortunate because almost like Chocolatito, like people here in the US are catching him like late in his career. He got hit with a lot of shots that he probably shouldn't have. And but then again, like his heart, man, like you could see it, both guys, man, what tremendous back and forth ebbs and flow. It was a great fight. The problem is that it was ruined by the two scorecards giving the last two rounds to Kenshiro when they probably should have gone to Canizales, which would have awarded him the fight. But I tell you, it was a great fight. If I'm Kenshiro, I would not go for that rematch, and I'd move on to like one of the other champions and maybe catch Canizales on the back end. We use back end again, but catch him like aged out a little bit, and then maybe fight him because as the old what is it, the Rocky movie said, he's all wrong for us, baby, and I don't think he should be fighting him next.
Well, I think that I'm seeing a slight decline in him from the Hecky Butler fight. And I think that the Kawaguchi fight, I'm going deep nerdum right here, but the Kawaguchi performance was a top five fighter in the world type performance where it's like I didn't know how good he was. Abe told me watch him, and then I tune in and I just watch this guy beat the living crap out of a really, really good fighter. That being said, you said it perfectly. I think that just the sheer fact of being a smaller guy and having to make weights when your body's like, actually, I want to be 140 pounds and you're making 108 pounds, I think that limits your potential of fighting into your 30s. And then the frame and having to fight bigger guys, etc. Now, my big takeaway with Ken Shiro, and I think the Chocolatito comparison is 100% accurate because it's like most guys are going to be like, oh, he gets hit too much, and they won't see the greatness of the fighter, same weight class, etc. To me, I think my guy Dakota, when he called me yesterday, he had never seen him. Perfect comparison. The way he boxes reminds him of Giovanni Cabrera, and to me, his toughness reminds me of Arturo Gatti. And I like both of those fighters. So you combine those, you have a great action fighter. And I think I'm prone to overrating smaller weight guys because they don't get enough attention.
Yeah, and you know what? And I was told yesterday by somebody who has spoke to Junto Nakatani. He admitted that Kenshiro was his toughest sparring partner. And mind you, Junto Nakatani is a bigger guy. So if that doesn't tell you something, Junto Nakatani is a bad dude. If that doesn't tell you how good of a fighter Kenshiro is, then I don't know what will.
Yeah, I mean, look, you just have to be, but like, this is a weird world we live in. We have guys out there, guys and girls on YouTube and media platforms, credible platforms saying Nao Inoue isn't good. So someone's saying Nao Inoue isn't good and Terrence Crawford is overrated, and there are two best consensus fighters, and people aren't watching Alexander Usyk fight. Like, how do you expect reasonable takes? Because those are our best fighters. So then the next tier below them, if those guys in their perception aren't good, how do you realistically expect him to be assessed fairly?
Yeah, man. And you know, it's unfortunate, but we'll see. We'll see where he goes. I still love the Bomba Gonzalez fight, the Jonathan Bomba Gonzalez fight with Kenshiro. I think that would be a great fight in Japan. You know, Bomba just has to, you know, show up to the fight actually and not cancel like he did the last two times.
Is
So
that shots
uh,
fired?
I'm just saying he's canceled his last two fights, and one of them was a fight against Kenshiro in Japan. So I don't know. We'll see.
And then the other champion in that division, I was looking at it yesterday. I forget who it is. But I can't help but wonder that the guy that was in the co-main, who I can't pronounce his name, Akiu or whatever, flyweight. I feel like there's a chance Kenshiro just moves up to flyweight and goes for that belt because then you have the potential of a Jesse Bam Rodriguez. Then you have the fight we all want to see, honestly, from a TV network. Cesar Martinez versus Kenshiro. I mean, that's just whoever lands first. But a part of me thinks that even though he wants to probably undispute, I think the bigger fights, the more meaningful fights are actually at 112.
I would say that you're right if Kenshiro would have won cleanly on Tuesday, but part of him is going to want to make right the wrong, so to speak, and I think that that won't be the next step, and you know he's going to want to right the wrong and maybe get another strap or maybe just go for the full blown undisputed at 108.
To me, I feel like he needs to definitely win one of like run this fight back and definitively prove that he should win this fight.
Yeah, I mean he may, but you know, from what I heard, I don't think he's gonna do that.
So well, I love the professional Abe is. He just waits there, real professional. And so you're saying it's like a Natasha Jonas, Michaela Mayer, like the whole world kind of thinks Michaela won, but then she's like, she probably should have done a little bit more. I think I'm gonna do something else. It kind of feels like, man, I just got this win. I'm not really feeling doing it again.
100%. 100% that's what's gonna happen. And maybe we see him on the in a way card on in May or you know maybe in the summertime. But I know that he has to stay busy though. He can't just fight once a year like Ioka or somebody like that.
Everybody,
Yeah.
like half of our pound for pound fighters, like, I'm semi-retired slash carrying the sport you guys cover. Don't mind me. I'm just out here to make money. Um, and then you guys have the audacity to try to write stories about us to promote the fight to make you more money, but you're really jerks like that type of stuff. I love that.
That sounds like a perfect segue to our next topic.
Let's why don't you do that? That was my greeny tease. What is our next topic?
I think Keith Thurman and Tim Tszyu at the catch weight of 155 pounds.
Oh wow, it's a catchweight bout, so it's historically irrelevant. I love that.
Oh man, he hasn't fought in 2 years, and he's gonna fight at a catch weight on March 30th.
So I was taking a shower last night, Abe, and I know the chat and you will be confused that I use good hygiene, but I actually do. And I want to say I was sitting there and I thought, so I'm just guessing. I'm not looking. Let's say the Danny Garcia fight happened probably 2017. So he wins that fight. Josecito Lopez, I believe, would be his next fight. That's 2019. 2021 maybe would be the no, 2020 would be the Pacquiao fight. And then no,
No,
2019 would be the
2019.
Pacquiao fight. So that was actually before the pandemic.
Yep.
Then 2022 would be the Barrios fight. So that's 4 fights in 7 years.
Something like that. Yeah. And it's a shame because he could have had a Hall of Fame career.
I mean, I can't vote for him. Not that I'm ever going to vote for the Hall of Fame stuff. You can vote. Um, but my thing with Keith Thurman is, does he even like boxing? Like, he doesn't go to these events. He doesn't seem like motivated. He doesn't, it seems like this is very much like, okay, I've established myself. What's the most money I can make? If I don't make that money, I'm not that interested. To me, I don't understand how anyone going into this fight could be like, I think Keith Thurman's going to win this because look at Tim Tszyu and it's a guy who's staying active and he seems like he loves the sport. I don't know what Thurman is right now.
Yeah, and he's got the two things that are going against him, right? He is 35 years old, believe it or not, ladies and gentlemen, 35, and he's fighting at 155 pounds, three things, and he hasn't fought in 2 years. You can't overcome all of that. I mean, that's just too much. I'm not gonna lie though, I always enjoy the Keith Thurman sound bites leading up to a fight. That's probably gonna be the most enjoyment that I'm going to have on this because he's going to talk some shit and I'm here for that. I love it. I love me some Keith Thurman shit talking. But when fight night comes, oof, Tim Tszyu's going to put it on him, and I feel real sorry for him.
And I think the other issue is like Thurman never can hide a body shot. And like, what does Tim Tszyu do really well? He cuts off. There's a lot of things like with Tim Tszyu where he's similar to Golovkin, but he's not really Golovkin. So it's like he doesn't have like some of the greatness of Golovkin, but he knows how to cut off the ring and hit hard like Golovkin. To me, this is just the Tony Harrison fight all over again, where it's like there's going to be a lot of naive people that are going to be like, oh man, this guy's unproven. And I think he's going to stop him brutally.
Yeah, you know what my first thought was? Where is Jermell Charlo in all of this? Um, Man, I'm not saying, I won't call anybody scared or duck or anything like that. But this fight with Tim Tszyu should have happened already. Why hasn't it happened yet? I don't think anybody can answer that because every time that there's an opportunity for Jermell Charlo to fight Tim Tszyu, something else comes up, whether it's an injury or a new fight or whatever the case may be. So, where is Jermell Charlo in all of this?
I think another issue with Jermell Charlo, like another fighter where are we sure he likes boxing? Like Jermell Charlo, are we sure he likes boxing? I hate to say it. I love um Abdul Wahid, Tank. Are we sure he likes boxing? Like there's a lot of fighters currently that I don't know the answer to that question. Errol Spence Jr., are we sure he likes boxing? Like there are a lot of figures that if it turns 2025 and they don't fight anymore, I would not be shocked. And it's like I think that we're getting you look at some of these figures, Charlo, Tank, they're already saying they don't want to box kind of in interviews. They're like talking about retirement. So I think that people don't understand we're transitioning in eras quicker than people might expect.
Yeah, we're in an era, and I think we talked about it, the Gen Z era, where they don't stay in the one thing for an extended period of time. Like they don't look at retiring from the one thing, 20 years into it. They're mostly into, hey, I'm gonna stick with this for a little bit, and once I get tired of it, I'm gonna go and move on to the next thing. And I think we're going to see more of those fighters retiring at 30, 31 instead of fighters retiring at 40, 41.
Well, I think that now there's a view of how do I get to a certain economic status? And then with that economic status and followers, how can I go and do other things that aren't getting punched? And I think we're seeing prospects transition into like pseudo influencers or brand ambassadors. And that's something that the sport has never seen prior to this is people that can make as much money in boxing, not boxing. And then it comes down to, do you really care about being a Hall of Fame great boxer?
Yeah, which is um, actually a perfect segue to our next topic of those individuals that fall into that category. We're talking about the circle of friends between Rolando Romero, Isaac Pitbull Cruz, and Ryan Garcia. Man, it's one day it's Ryan Garcia versus Romero. The next day it's Romero versus Pitbull. The next day is Oscar saying, "Oh, I almost have Jose Ramirez versus Ryan Garcia signed." Then last night, Ryan Garcia says, "Oh, me and forget about all the confusion. Me and Romero next." And then 5 hours later, Copper just says, "Nope, it's Romero versus Pitbull, like official." Man, like I don't. And then Ryan circles back and says, "Well, I'm sorry again for the confusion. Fight news coming soon." It's wild. It's wild that all of these, like the past few days, there has been this circle of news, and then come to find out, Ryan looks dumb, right, for putting that out. He deleted it later, and then now because he was misinformed, and now we get Rolando Romero versus Isaac Pitbull Cruz, with Cruz moving up in weight for the fight, which is the fight that I guess it'll be, two guys that aren't that highly skilled, and they're just gonna try to go for a knockout.
Well, and I think it's like what we're seeing. So like I look at each promoter as different, and I think with PBC they've really echoed we're here to make events. So it's like they're not gonna give me my top rank under. They're not even gonna give me undercard streams. They're basically like, those happen. Take someone's word that it happens, right? Joe Shawn fights a good fighter on the undercard. Well, it happened, but you don't get to see it. Hope to God it comes out somewhere. What they're into is concert promotion and big name fighters fighting each other. This fight is two famous fighters going into battle against each other. And I feel like that's what they're gearing towards. When you look at the announcement of these fights outside of Lara Zarafa, it is okay, here's Rolly and Isaac Pitbull Cruz. You've seen them fight. They're fighting at a formidable weight. It might not fully make sense for both of them, but these are exciting guys. And then the other one is here's Keith Thurman. You might have heard of him. People say he's really good. You probably didn't even watch boxing when he was fighting. And here's Tim Tszyu, who he may or may not be good. He might be overhyped. And they're fighting at whatever weight.
Yeah, basically. But you know what though? The more I see Tim Tszyu fighting and just being around, I feel like the more comfortable he's getting and his personality is starting to develop and evolve. Um, the more he's becoming like likable. I remember like some of the early Tim Tszyu interviews. Woof, it was hard to get through. And he just seemed really uncomfortable, but it feels like he's really getting into his way now, and I think that Tim Tszyu has the potential of becoming like a real star in the sport. The Thurman fight is just a rub for him to go to the next level and have a mega fight with whoever that may be. Maybe Crawford. Maybe that it sets up for a mega Crawford fight in July. Um, but
But I mean,
yeah,
that's the PBC mark
yeah.
is how can we match up the biggest name fighters and then everything will kind of coexist around that. I think the frustration I have with PBC sometimes is like a guy like Jesus Ramos Jr., Erickson Lubin, where do they fit into that top level? It's like if there's two big name fighters, they're going to put there, but it also feels like guys get stuck in a holding pattern because I don't see the development system the same as other companies.
Not only that, but what about the junior middleweight division? You got all these guys almost like waiting for a shot, ranked number 1 through 5 across the board, and the champions aren't even fighting any of them. So if you're a bad news Charles Conwell, like you're still sitting around waiting for a shot at the title, and it doesn't look like it's happening anytime soon, unless Jermell Charlo decides that he wants to fight someone like Conwell. But I don't see that happening. So what happens to those top five guys?
Let's take it a step further. What happens to the middleweight division? You know, we got Arislandi Lara. He didn't fight last year. We got Jermall Charlo hasn't fought with the middleweight title. Carlos Adami's only fought once last year. Light heavyweight, if you're not Bivol or better Beef, what do you do? We have far too many weight classes currently where there's inactive champions, and the people coming up the divisions just don't have opportunities.
So Lara is fighting on that March 30th card, actually. Um,
Against Zarafa, the number one
yeah,
guy. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So, I don't know. I mean, wasn't he supposed to fight Danny Garcia like four times last year?
And that's like a 30 for 30 or a boxing documentary to be made. It's like that fight was essentially announced, then it was called off, and then nobody ever talked about it. And Zarafa went on the Boxing Voice and said, I was signed to an exclusive deal to fight on the PBC undercard of that card. So that actually held him out of the ring, which then guys like Ian Green, guys like Shea Mosley Jr., if you're smart, you're not going to take good fights because all those guys are not really fighting. So it just basically wasted a year for the middleweight division.
Yeah. And I guess the only other thing that could potentially happen is, Jermell move up and start fighting some of those guys, right? And then officially vacates the rest of the junior middleweight titles. So I don't know, man.
I
What
mean, I'm gonna
what's,
be
what's
honest with you, and I probably shouldn't be this honest, but I don't think Jermell Charlo is gonna come back to boxing, and if he does, it's only gonna be for a financial means, which I hope doesn't happen. But I think that Canelo fight, that's it. That's his Joshua Cloudy moment. Maybe he'll come back once or twice, but I think he got what he needed from the sport of boxing, and now he's done. And I think that we're gonna see some of these guys that fit into that category. Like, I think the big one I'm curious about is Tank feels like he could be the face of this generation, but we're now approaching 12 months. We're creeping in on that window of a year outside of the ring. And last year he fought twice, the year before once. He's not quite fighting as frequently as you would hope for someone as powerful and impactful as he is in the sport of boxing.
Yeah, and I think that he probably was, penned in or penciled in for that March 30th date. But that whole situation with his coach, Calvin Ford, with the court case that he's got, that might have put a damper on things and pushed that fight date back. But yeah, you're right. Like I don't know. These guys have to fight more than once a year if they want to continue being, superstars in the sport, because we are definitely in a what have you done for me lately type of era.
Well, let's phrase it like let's be absurd, right? So let's be ridiculous. You write 1 week's worth of fight coverage. You get paid $1 million or something, and then you're like, okay, I'll see you next year. I did my part. I did my thing. I'm just out here to take care of my family. I'm not saying that's directly what these fighters are doing, and I'm not saying that they don't risk their life, but I'm also saying that when it consistently happens time and time again, there is a level of dislike I think some fans start to have because our fan base isn't always economically rich. And I think people look resentful when you're like, okay, I'm just going to fight once. It's going to be whatever benefits me the most. I'm going to get as much money as possible. And yeah, you're going to just deal with it because I'm really rich and famous. And I think that sounds like a dictatorship. And as
Yeah,
Americans, we don't like being told what to do.
yeah, and with that, I'm interested in seeing, like, in relation to that topic, I'm interested in seeing what Fury and Usyk pay-per-view price point is, because one thing has been trending with the Saudis is that the pay-per-view price point hasn't been like this outrageous price, right? And so if we continue to see them lower the price or have the price at a $40 range, that could potentially affect the competition right now, right? Which is the PBC, and how much, and if they have to make adjustments, how much they pay the fighters will now be affected, and then it just snowballs from there. So, interesting to see how all those financials pan out because honestly, that'll dictate how often these guys fight.
So now I'm gonna ask a follow-up question. Do you think Saudi Arabia is putting an economic squeeze on the pay-per-view market because they can do that. They can dictate the price because they have a wealth of riches currently. So they can actually go at other promoters' alleged models of pay-per-view revenue and maybe try to change the price point.
Yeah, so I think that they are. And I don't think that the other promoters have an issue with it because they're getting their cut without having to put the effort, right? And so the only ones that the PBC is the only ones that haven't worked directly with the Saudis. But everyone else is kind of like, hey, we're good. You're gonna cut me a check. I don't have to really promote. You're gonna take all that on. And I have zero kind of not responsibility, but there's no room for me to drop the ball on this because you guys got it. Yeah, I'm good. And so at that point, it's not gonna really matter to them the pay-per-view price point because they're not holding, the bag. So yeah, I think that they're going to try to maybe do that. And it makes sense, right? Because we've always said it, you put it at a reasonable price, more people will be out open to actually paying for it instead of illegally streaming it. I mean, you're still gonna have that percentage, but there's a difference between charging $30, $40 and charging $80, $90. So, I mean, it's just what it is.
Now let's say that I don't know, I haven't heard any official news, but if Tim Tszyu, Keith Thurman ends up on pay-per-view on Amazon Prime, how vital is price point for that?
It is going to be on pay-per-view, and price point is definitely vital because I don't know if you do Fury Usyk at $40 and you come back out and say Zoo and Thurman is at $85 or something like that. Ooh, that's going to be a hard sell. That's going to be a hard sell. So we'll see.
Okay. Now we're on the shot clock is up, so I got to get to my Royal Rumble questions. Royal Rumble, what are the key storylines for those that are tuned in like me for only the three majors of the year? We go Royal Rumble, WrestleMania, SummerSlam, and then occasionally I'll do a Survivor Series. So what are the things people should be aware of for this year's Royal Rumble?
Well, who's going to win on the men's side, right? So WrestleMania is a two-night event. One of the main events is likely to be Roman Reigns versus the Dwayne The Rock Johnson. So the other main event is what these guys will be fighting for or doing the Rumble for. Cody Rhodes and CM Punk seem like the main storyline for the Royal Rumble. They'll probably end up being the last guys in there, and then they'll throw in like a monkey wrench in there and throw a random guy. But I think that that's the main storyline. They're building towards that, whether it's to WrestleMania or not.
Is there any chance they could eliminate each other and there could be like a wild card guy that no one sees coming, like a swerve, where then they have to do like a revenge match, a no holds bars match?
There's a good possibility that could happen. And then, you have a guy like Maxwell Jacob Freeman from AEW, one of their top stars. He's a free agent. And for years, he has been saying that, there'll be a bidding war between WWE and AEW for his services. So what if he comes out as a surprise and eliminates both of them? He has history with both of them on the AEW side, so that would make for an interesting story. And then he goes on to WrestleMania, so he's a big enough star to main event it right away. So a lot of interesting stuff.
Any just big dudes? Like, is there a guy that's like it's going to take four or five people to get him over the top rope that we should be watching for?
Yeah, probably almost. He's like 7'3", I think, like 400 and something pounds. He's just a big dude. But you know what? It's in Tampa, Florida, and Tampa, Florida is the home of John Cena. And I think that we get a John Cena appearance at the Royal Rumble, sort of like what he did in 2008 at my home in New York City at Madison Square Garden, where the crowd went absolutely nuts when he came in as at number 30. So we'll see.
Okay. Women's Rumble. Anyone that we should be keeping an eye on?
The women's rumble is, I don't know, there hasn't been too much focus on that.
So this is
The
just probably going to be put together the day of the event. It sounds like.
yeah, yeah, they're probably going back and forth on how this thing is going to look. Um, I don't know. The interest in the women's rumble hasn't been as much this year than it has been last year or the year before. So it's all about the men's Royal Rumble this year, as far as storyline is concerned.
Yeah, I mean, I was looking over the roster. Every single person looks like they do CrossFit, but especially the women's roster, like they all look so much bigger than me, even though they're listed at like 130 pounds.
Yeah, no, some of those women, especially uh some of the ones from NXT, and they'll be involved in the Royal Rumble as well. Some big girls, they be doing a lot of heavy squatting. I've seen some of the videos out there. So strong women, very athletic, and they're gonna do their thing, no question. It's just that the storyline for the men's Royal Rumble is just a little more interesting this year.
Most 80s wrestler right now that's going to be involved with the Rumble. So if someone's tuning in and they're an older dude like myself, a middle-aged dude, who's the person that could fit into that 80s wrestling era right now?
Oh, I think Roman Reigns. I think Roman Reigns would fit in there, and so would John Cena. I think both of those guys would fit in there and would be good because they probably more so John Cena, because John Cena is really about the wrestling business and doing the right thing when being called upon. So is Cody Rhodes as well, because obviously he's the son of Dusty Rhodes. So yeah, those three guys I would say.
Yeah, I think that's like yeah. So I think also for like the Royal Rumble, the atmosphere is a big thing for me. So like I enjoy watching these bigger events because the crowd is just as much a part of it. Who do you think is going to have the loudest cheers and who's going to flop the hardest when they come to the ring?
There's gonna be a random like throwback wrestler that is probably gonna get thrown out right away. The loudest pop will probably be Cody Rhodes, I think.
So you got to eliminate him, right? Because then that everyone's going to be shocked. It's like, "Whoa." And then he's got to eliminate the guy that cheated to get him out. And then we got an old school thing. On a scale of 1 to 10, how exciting is this Royal Rumble competing with it's going up against the NFL conference playoffs? We got Mungia's fight and some other stuff going on this weekend. Where do you put it on the sporting calendar?
Oh man, it's at number 9 for me from 1 to 10. You have to think about they're coming off a hot Monday Night Raw show. Then they sign a 10-year deal with Netflix starting in 2025 for Monday Night Raw. Then The Rock gets signed as the board of directors for TKO, which houses WWE and the UFC. So they're just on a mega roll right now. And John Cena has been taking pictures with the Saudis with Turkey Al Sheikh and them. There's just a lot of momentum going into Saturday night, and I think they have the most momentum.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if there's some form of integration in the future with Joshua, Francis, and Fury moving forward as well. You just gave me that idea.
Yeah, you know what? I wouldn't be surprised if someone like Conor McGregor would pop up on the Royal Rumble and get eliminated.
That would be so tight if he comes out and then like imagine if he comes out and then he gets eliminated and eliminates Cody Rhodes. Like that would just
He-
be amazing.
He'd be immediately, as they say, he'd be over immediately.
I mean, Conor McGregor is so cool. I don't even watch MMA and I just like him. Like everything about him is just so fascinating and interesting.
Yeah, and they've been, believe it or not, the WWE's been trying to find a way to incorporate Conor McGregor for years already. And he just hasn't committed to it, but I think that eventually he will, be like a Shamrock and make his way into WWE.
Final thing before we promote your site. Ronda Rousey, is she involved at all with this?
Ooh, that's a great question. So she did she did an indie event, or two of them actually, a couple months back. Um, I don't know. I think she might be a surprise entrant, but you never know. I think that she has mixed emotions about being in the WWE and on a big stage like that. So we'll see.
She reminds me of like a pure artist who she wants to do things her way. She's going to be highly successful. And then it's going to be very hard to work with her because she wants her vision like exactly that way. And I think that that's the pattern I always see is brilliance, amazing, meteoric rise. And then it just can't sustain because she's not going to work with other people maybe as well as they'd hope.
Yeah, that's basically what it is in a nutshell. So it'll be interesting. Tampa, Florida has, all of those wrestlers. That's where most of them live. So I wouldn't rule out anyone from popping up.
Okay, well, you almost made a funny noise, but before you do, let's go to Fights ATW. What is this new website before they boot us off this stream?
Yes, fightsaroundtheworld.com. I mean, Fights ATW, which is Fights Around the World. Come visit. I got wrestling, boxing content. I've got amateur standout stuff. I got, news. I got features. Come check us out. Let us know what you think. And I appreciate you as always, Lukey.
Yeah, man, I'm just a bald guy sitting in a barn. Be sure to go to the website, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment if you want Abe to come back, and we are out.